For several minutes, it seemed like he was right. The space ahead was empty, silent. Just cold stars and the endless void. The fleet advanced deeper, their scanners showing nothing unusual. Then something strange happened. Small distortions began to appear on the radar, tiny glitches like static. The sensor officers checked and rechecked their equipment, but the readings only grew stronger. The distortions moved, shifting positions in perfect synchronization. Drevek frowned and ordered weapons to be armed. Just as the crews finished loading torpedoes, the stars around them changed one by one. Massive shapes appeared where nothing had been before. Human warships decloaked inside the Zarthian formation. They hadn't approached from outside. They were already there, right between the Zarthian vessels. The crews froze in shock, realizing the humans had been with them the entire time, shadowing them silently. The largest of the ships, a black armored cruiser with jagged edges and glowing blue thrusters, opened a comm channel. The same calm voice from Vezrak's encounter filled every bridge. "You have crossed the line again," it said. "Leave now," Drevek tried to sound confident. "We have no hostile intentions," he replied. "We are simply testing our navigation systems." The voice did not reply immediately. Instead, the human ships shifted formation, every one of them locking weapons on the Zarthians in seconds. Every targeting system in the Zarthian fleet went dead. Screens flashed red as control systems were overridden. Engines powered down one by one. Communications between ships were cut. Panic spread. The Zarthian crews tried to restore control, but their commands were ignored. The humans had taken complete control of their ships without firing a shot. On Drevek's bridge, his officers stared at him in fear. This was no bluff. This was total dominance. Finally, the voice returned. "We will return control to your ships," it said. "This is your last warning. Cross again, and there will be no message to deliver." True to their word, the humans restored the systems. Lights returned, engines roared back to life, weapons came online, but no one dared touch them. The human ships slowly pulled away, fading back into the darkness until they vanished completely. Drevek sat in his command chair, pale and silent. He had come to prove humans were weak, but instead, he had seen them disable an entire fleet in seconds. The silence on the return trip was heavy. The crews avoided speaking, afraid even their words might carry some signal the humans could hear. When the fleet returned to Zarthian space, Drevek reported the truth. The council listened, but their pride would not allow them to accept it. They refused to admit they had underestimated the humans. Instead, they claimed the humans must have relied on advanced hacking software, not real strength. One counselor said, "If they had the power to destroy us, they would have. This means they fear us." Vezrak, sitting in the back of the chamber, knew the truth. He could still hear the human voice in his head, calm, steady, and utterly certain. The humans did not fear anyone. They simply didn't need to fight to win. Outside, in the dark reaches of space, the humans watched. Their silent fleets patrolled the deadline, unseen, waiting. They had let the Zarthians go again, but their patience was not endless. If the aliens crossed one more time, the galaxy would learn the cost, and there would be no survivors to tell the tale. The Zarthian High Council had heard the warnings twice now, once from Vezrak and once from Commander Drevek. But pride is a dangerous thing, and theirs was still wounded. The galaxy had whispered for years that the Zarthians were a proud and powerful race, unmatched in shipbuilding and strategy. To accept that the humans, a species the Zarthians considered young and untested, could hold them at bay without a battle was unthinkable. In private, some counselors admitted the humans were dangerous, but in public, they spoke only of human illusions and tactical bluffs. The propaganda channels replayed the same message. The humans feared a real fight. The citizens cheered, but many military veterans remained silent. They knew that the humans had shown only a fraction of what they could do. Then came the spark that lit the fire. A Zarthian mining fleet was destroyed near the deadline. The attackers were unknown pirates, but their escape path was traced directly into human space. The Council seized on this, claiming it was proof that the humans were working with criminals. They called for a full military response, and this time they would not send 20 ships, they would send an armada. 500 warships gathered in orbit around the Zarthian homeworld. The largest fleet in their history. Ships of every class: frigates, destroyers, heavy cruisers, carriers lined up in tight formation. Thousands of crew members boarded, eager for the glory of defeating the humans. Commander Drevik was placed in charge again, not because he had succeeded before, but because the Council believed his experience with the humans would help him break their tricks. Vezrak watched from the shadows as the fleet prepared to depart. He had seen the human Dreadnought up close, had felt the cold certainty in that calm voice. He knew the Zarthians were walking into a storm, but no one listened to him now. He was labeled a coward. The Armada left in perfect formation, their engines blazing as they approached the deadline. The first hours passed without incident. The border space was as silent as before. No comms, no movement, no sign of the humans. The crews grew confident. Some began to mock the idea that the humans were even watching. Then space began to ripple. At first, it was subtle gravity distortions too faint to trigger alarms. The stars ahead wavered, shifting in strange ways. Navigation systems glitched, pulling some ships slightly off course. The crews tried to correct, but the distortions grew stronger. Within minutes, the entire fleet's formation was breaking apart. Ships drifted away from their positions. Comms crackled with interference. Drevik barked orders, trying to hold the Armada together, but every system seemed to be fighting against them. The navigation maps scrambled, showing impossible routes. Engines cut power for seconds at a time without warning. And then the shadows appeared. 3 massive dreadnoughts emerged from the distortion, each one as large as a city, their black hulls glowing faintly with blue light. They were positioned at different points around the fleet, far enough apart to cover every angle of attack. For a heartbeat, the Zarthians thought they had the numbers to overwhelm them. Then more shapes appeared, dozens of cruisers decloaked behind the dreadnoughts, followed by waves of frigates and drone carriers. But the strangest thing was that the humans didn't fire. They simply moved fast, impossibly fast for ships of their size. The dreadnoughts began to circle the Armada, forcing the Zarthians to turn in different directions. Breaking their lines further, Drevik ordered an attack. The first wave of Zarthian torpedoes launched toward the nearest dreadnought. The humans responded instantly, not with counter-fire, but with light. A blinding blue pulse swept out from the dreadnought's hull, and every single torpedo froze in place, engines dead. Before drifting harmlessly into the void, the Zarthian crews stared in disbelief. Never in their history had they seen weapons stopped so effortlessly. Then the human voice came. This time it was not calm, it was cold. "You were warned," it said. "You crossed the line again." Drevik, desperate to save face, ordered his fleet to focus fire on the nearest human cruiser. The Zarthian cannons lit up the void, beams and plasma streaking toward the target. The shots struck true, but instead of exploding, the cruiser's hull absorbed the energy like water soaking into sand. Seconds later, the same energy flared back out from the cruiser's sides, ripping through 3 Zarthian frigates in one devastating sweep. The panic was instant. Ships broke formation entirely, some trying to retreat, others firing wildly at anything that moved. The humans moved with precision, not wasting a single shot. Every time a Zarthian ship tried to flee, a human frigate slid silently into its path, forcing it back into the chaos. Within 10 minutes, the mighty Zarthian Armada was in ruins, not all of it destroyed, but all of it broken. Engines disabled, weapons drained, shields gone. The humans could have annihilated every ship, but they didn't. Instead, the human fleet surrounded the surviving Zarthian vessels, boxing them in like cattle. The voice returned. "You will go home," it said. "You will tell them this was the last warning. There will not be another." One by one, the Zarthian ships were released. allowed to limp back toward their own space. The dreadnought stayed behind, holding position at the deadline, silent and unshakable on the journey home. Druvik did not speak. His officers avoided his gaze. No one dared to celebrate surviving, because they all knew the truth. They hadn't survived because of skill or luck. They had survived because the humans had allowed it. When the remnants of the Armada returned to the Zarthian capital, the council was split. Some wanted to declare war, claiming the humans were a threat that must be destroyed before they grew stronger. Others, pale and shaken by the scale of the defeat, whispered that war would mean extinction. And somewhere, far beyond the deadline, the human fleets watched, waiting. They had shown restraint, but restraint had limits. If the Zarthians crossed again, the humans would not just break their ships. They would erase their name from the stars. The galaxy called it the deadline, an invisible line in space where every alien map stopped. No star chart ever showed what was beyond it, and no captain was foolish enough to cross. Beyond it was human space, a place so feared that even the most dangerous warlords stayed away. Some said it was cursed. Others claimed it was patrolled by ghost fleets that destroyed anything that entered. Stories told of whole armadas that vanished without firing a single shot, of colonies that went dark in a single night, of ships found drifting with no crew. And with all systems working perfectly, no one knew if the stories were true. But no one dared to test them, until now on the edge of the deadline drifted a Zarthian scout ship named Varen's Eye. Its captain, Vezrak, was young and arrogant. He had heard the stories but believed they were just human propaganda. He wanted to make his name in the history logs of his people by being the first to cross the deadline and return alive. The crew was nervous. They whispered about old friends and ships that had never returned. Some of them begged Vezrak to turn back, but he refused. He wanted proof that the humans were just a small and weak species hiding behind lies. The ship moved closer to the deadline. The space ahead looked empty and silent. The stars shone the same as anywhere else, but the crew could feel something strange. It was like the space ahead of them was heavier, like an unseen weight pressing down. The air on the bridge felt thicker, and the quiet hum of the engine seemed louder. Vezrak tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. Sensors picked up nothing unusual at first, just empty void. No ships, no stations, no radio signals. The crew began to relax, believing they had been right all along. But then a small flicker appeared on the radar. It was faint, almost too small to notice. Vezrak ordered the sensor officer to scan again. And this time, the reading was stronger. Something massive was out there, moving without any visible energy. Signature, it was coming straight toward them. The bridge went silent. Every crew member stared at the display. The object was huge, far bigger than anything the Zarthians had built, but no light reflected off it. It was like a piece of the void itself was sliding toward them. Then it came into view, out of the darkness. A shadow emerged, a ship so massive it made their own vessel feel like a toy. Its hull was black as night, with sharp angular lines and faint blue lights running along its edges. The way it moved was unnatural, smooth and silent, not like any engine they had ever seen. No thrusters, no visible weapons. Yet the presence of the ship made every heart race. It was a human dreadnought. No one spoke, no one breathed. The dreadnought drifted closer until it filled the entire view screen. The crew could see details on its hull, strange markings, scars from battles long past, and gun batteries so large they could rip a city apart. But the guns were not aimed at them. They didn't need to be. Everyone on the Varen's Eye could feel the power this ship carried. The dreadnought didn't hail them at first. It didn't move aggressively. It simply held position in front of them, blocking their path. It was like a giant predator watching a smaller animal decide if it wanted to run. Vezrak tried to open a cunning channel, but before he could, a voice came through, calm and steady. The language was human, but the translator chip made it clear. "You have entered restricted space," the voice said. "Identify yourself or prepare to be erased." The words were not shouted. They were not full of anger. But there was something in the tone, something that said the human was not bluffing. Vezrak swallowed hard and gave his name ship registry and claimed they were on a peaceful mission. The voice didn't reply right away. Instead, the dreadnought slowly shifted, and the stars around it seemed to move. The crew realized it wasn't the stars moving. Dozens of other ships were decloaking all around them. Frigates, cruisers, carriers, hundreds of them had been there the whole time, hidden in the dark. Their hulls were different sizes and shapes, but every one of them had the same black armor and cold blue lights. It was like the void itself had opened its eyes. The aliens froze in their seats. The Varan's eye was surrounded, and every ship had their targeting systems locked. Vezrak felt the sweat on his forehead. His crew was terrified. They could tell that if the humans wanted them gone, they would vanish in seconds. The voice returned. "You will turn back," it said. "You will not cross this line again." Vezrak wanted to argue, but something in the back of his mind screamed not to. The way the human spoke was not the way a nervous defender would speak. It was the way a predator spoke when it had all the power. Slowly, he gave the order to reverse course. As the Varan's eye drifted away, the human ships held their positions, silent, watching. The crew felt like they were being judged, measured, and weighed. Vezrak had wanted to prove that the dead line was just a story, but now he knew the truth. The humans were real, their warships were real, and they didn't just defend their space, they owned it. When the Varan's eye finally left the deadline behind, Vezrak didn't speak. The crew didn't speak either, but every one of them knew they had been spared, not because the humans were merciful, but because the humans wanted them to carry a message back, a warning: stay out of human space, or you won't come back at all. The Varan's eye returned to Zarthian space with a silence that felt heavier than the journey out. No one celebrated, no one even spoke much. Captain Vezrak filed a formal report to the Zarthian High Council, detailing the encounter with the human dreadnought and the hundreds of warships that had surrounded them. He described the voice that had warned them away, the sheer size of the vessels, and the fact that every weapon had been ready without a hint of panic or disorder. The council listened, but when Vezrak finished, they laughed. They called him dramatic. They claimed his mind had been fooled by human holograms and sensor tricks to them. The idea that one species could control that much firepower and remain completely undetected was ridiculous. Vezrak argued, saying the humans had technology far beyond anything they'd seen. He described the cloaked fleet, the silent dreadnought, and the feeling of being hunted without a single shot being fired. But the council saw it differently. They believed the humans were hiding behind smoke and mirrors, projecting an image of strength to scare intruders away from their borders. One counselor leaned forward and said, "If they are truly so dangerous, why didn't they destroy you?" The captain knew the answer, because they wanted the Zarthians to live and tell the story, but he didn't say it. His silence only made the council more certain of their view. To them, the humans had shown weakness, and weakness could be exploited. The council made their decision. They ordered a second mission, but this time it would not be a lone scout ship. It would be a small fleet of 20 warships, armed and ready. Their task was simple: cross the deadline again and test the humans. Defenses: if the humans responded, they would fight. If the humans didn't respond, the Zarthians would claim territory. News of the mission spread quickly, and not everyone approved. Older captains remembered rumors from decades past about other fleets that had vanished, but the younger officers, hungry for glory, were eager to prove themselves. Commander Drevik, a ruthless officer known for his ambition, was placed in charge. He promised the council that he would return with proof that humans were nothing but a bluff. The fleet assembled at the edge of the deadline, 20 ships in perfect formation, bristling with weapons. The crews were tense, but Drevik laughed. "Over the comes, see? No ghost ships, no mysterious weapons," he told them as they moved forward. "Only stories told to scare children." The Zarthian capital had never felt so tense. The great halls of the High Council, once filled with the confident chatter of politicians and admirals, now echoed with quiet arguments. The survivors of the Armada had returned battered and humiliated. Yet no one wanted to speak the truth aloud, that the humans had destroyed their pride without even trying. In private meetings, the most hard-headed counselors still clung to their arrogance. They told themselves the humans had simply been lucky, that their strange weapons and impossible tactics were tricks that could be copied and countered. But others, the ones who had studied the reports closely, knew better. They saw the same frightening detail in every battle log. The humans never lost control of the situation. Not even for a second. The military strategist called an emergency session to decide their next step. Commander Drevik stood before them, pale and tight-lipped. His voice shook as he described the human dreadnoughts, the blinding blue pulses that froze their weapons, the way their fleet was dismantled piece by piece. He admitted that at no point did he believe victory was possible. He even went as far as to say, "We were children playing at war, and they were the predators watching us." His words were not well received. Pride burned hotter than reason. And soon the chamber was filled with shouting. Some demanded another attack, claiming the humans were bluffing their way through superior numbers. Others insisted they focus on diplomacy, offering trade agreements to avoid another clash. But then the discussion took a dangerous turn. Counselor Ralvek, known for his cunning and ruthlessness, proposed what he called the final test. Instead of a direct assault, they would send a fleet disguised as civilian transports. Hidden among them would be warships with cloaked weapons and experimental shields. The goal was to slip into human space unnoticed and gather intelligence on their shipyards, military hubs, and planetary defenses. The room went silent for a moment. It was a gamble, a dangerous one, but for the arrogant counselors, it was also a chance to save face. If the humans didn't detect them, they could claim the humans were not as all-seeing as they pretended. And if they were detected, the fleet would simply retreat, hoping to escape with minimal losses. Vezrak, who had been forced into the role of silent observer, could barely contain his outrage. He stepped forward and warned them, "You will not come back. They will see you before you even cross the border, and they will not let you leave." His voice was ignored, just as before. His caution was mistaken for cowardice. Within 2 weeks, the final test was ready. 40 ships departed from Zarthian space, 20 disguised as harmless freighters, 10 as passenger liners, and 10 as cargo haulers. Hidden within them were warships equipped with the latest stealth systems the Zarthians had developed. The crews were confident, even smug, believing their technology could finally beat the human sensors. The journey to the deadline was uneventful. As they drew closer, the crew scanned every direction, finding nothing but open space. The void stretched endlessly, silent and calm. The disguise seemed to be working. As the first of the ships crossed into human space, something strange happened. The stars ahead seemed to dim, not vanish, but fade slightly, as if a shadow had passed over them. The navigators double-checked their systems, finding no astronomical reason for the change. A moment later, the comms on every ship lit up with a single message. It was not a hail or a demand for identification. It was just one sentence in perfect Zarthian. "We know who you are." Panic rippled through the disguised fleet. The warship crews activated their stealth weapons, preparing to fight their way out. But before a single shot could be fired, the space ahead of them shifted. Human dreadnoughts emerged not from hyperspace, not from cloaking, but from within. The shadows themselves. Their hulls reflected no light, their shapes almost blending with the void. There were not hundreds this time, just 6 of them, positioned in a loose circle around the Zarthian fleet. Yet somehow, those 6 ships felt like enough to crush them all. One of the dreadnoughts opened fire, but not with weapons that tore through hulls. Instead, it fired long spear-like projectiles that embedded themselves into the Zarthian ships. Within seconds, every system on the disguised vessels went dark. Engines powered down, shields collapsed. Weapons became useless. The crews could still breathe, still move, but their ships were dead. Then the human voice came, deeper and sharper. Then Vezrak remembered. "You think we do not watch our borders?" It said, "We have been watching you since the day your first ship approached our line. One of the disguised passenger ships tried to break away, desperate to run. It managed only a few hundred meters before a human frigate intercepted it." With blinding speed, the Zarthian crew watched as the frigate's hull shifted, panels opening to reveal weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. No shot was fired, but the message was clear: leave or die. The humans did not destroy the fleet outright. Instead, they forced them back toward the deadline, guiding them like predators herding prey. Every time a Zarthian ship drifted out of position, a human vessel would silently appear beside it, blocking its path. The humans never needed to shout or threaten. Their calm control over the situation was more terrifying than any display of raw firepower. Hours later, the Zarthian fleet limped back into their own territory, their mission a complete failure, their pride shattered once again. This time, there was no mistaking the message: human space was not simply defended. It was owned. When the fleet returned, the council chamber was silent. Even the most arrogant among them struggled to speak. The humans had not only detected their most advanced stealth fleet, they had done it without a single visible effort. Vezrak looked across the room and saw fear where there had once been arrogance. The truth was finally starting to take hold. But it had come too late. The humans had given them 3 warnings. And Vezrak knew well what would happen if the Zarthians ever crossed that line again. The next time, there would be no survivors. No reports, no fleets limping home, only silence and the cold, endless void. The weeks after the failed final test were filled with a silence that felt heavier than any battle report. The Zarthian High Council met in secret, but even behind closed doors, voices were quieter. The truth hung in the air like a shadow. They had pushed the humans 3 times, and 3 times they had been spared. That mercy would not last. Some counselors wanted to strike immediately, sending every ship they had into human space before the humans could prepare for a counterattack. Others, shaken by the precision and control of the human fleets, argued that even their full navy would vanish without causing a single casualty. Pride and fear twisted together in every discussion, until the debate stopped making sense. Meanwhile, rumors spread across the galaxy. Traitors from neutral systems told stories of the Zarthian defeats, embellishing the details with every retelling. Some claimed the humans had ships the size of moons. Others said the humans could disable fleets by thought alone. The more the stories spread, the more alien species marked human space in red on their charts, with a single word beside it: do not enter. For the Zarthians, this humiliation was unbearable. Their enemies mocked them. Their allies questioned their strength. Even within their own worlds, whispers of human superiority grew louder. The council feared rebellion if they didn't act. In a desperate move to restore their image, they announced Operation Breakpoint. It would not be an attack on human space. Instead, they would build a massive border fortress at the edge of the deadline. It would be the largest military installation in their history, bristling with weapons, shielded by the most advanced technology they possessed. The message was simple. The Zarthians were not afraid. Construction began immediately. Thousands of workers and soldiers poured into the sector. Massive cargo haulers brought in prefabricated armor plates, shield generators, and long-range cannons. The fortress grew quickly. A black and silver behemoth anchored to a cluster of asteroids. Its central cannon alone could punch through a battleship in one shot. From the outside, it was a show of strength. Inside, it was a fortress built out of fear. Every sensor was tuned toward human space, every comm array set to detect even the faintest signal. Patrol fleets moved constantly in the surrounding sector. For months, nothing happened. The humans didn't appear, didn't send a warning, didn't even acknowledge the fortress existed. The council began to think maybe the humans truly didn't care. Perhaps all the past encounters had been coincidences. That illusion shattered one quiet shift when a lone Zarthian patrol ship vanished. The last report from its captain was a brief, panicked transmission. "They're here." Then silence. The fortress immediately went to full alert. Fighters launched, defensive shields powered up. Every weapon locked on the void beyond the deadline. The officers expected an invading fleet, something massive enough to match their own firepower. But what appeared was worse. A single human dreadnought slipped into view. Its black hull seemed to swallow the starlight. The faint blue glow along its edges was the only thing that kept it from looking like a piece of the void itself. It did not open fire, did not even raise its weapons. It simply drifted closer, slow and deliberate. The Zarthian fortress commander ordered a warning shot. A beam of red plasma cut across the dreadnought's bow. But the human ship didn't slow, didn't acknowledge the shot at all. It continued forward until it stopped just outside the fortress's maximum range. Then the comms lit up. The voice was calm, as always. "You have built this wall for us," it said. "Now watch how easily it falls." Before the commander could respond, the dreadnought's hull panels shifted, revealing rows of strange, sleek launch tubes. A pulse of blue light rippled out, not toward the fortress itself, but toward the asteroid cluster beneath it. Within seconds, the rocks holding the fortress in place began to crack and shatter. The Zarthians fired everything: missiles, plasma beams, kinetic rounds, but not a single shot touched the dreadnought. The human ship weaved through the fire like it knew exactly where every shot would go before it was even fired. More blue pulses followed, targeting key structural points. In less than 5 minutes, the fortress began to tilt, its massive weight pulling it away from the asteroid base. Gravity generators failed, sections of the outer armor ripped free and drifted into space. The commander shouted orders for evacuation. Shuttles launched in all directions, but even they were not attacked. The humans weren't here to kill, they were here to humiliate. The dreadnought slowly turned and drifted back toward the deadline, leaving the fortress crippled and burning. When the rescue fleets arrived, they found the Zarthian flagship embedded into a shattered asteroid, its weapons offline, its crew alive but silent. No one could explain how the humans had taken down the fortress without firing a single shot at it. No one could explain why the dreadnought had left them alive. Back on the Zarthian homeworld, the Council could no longer hide the truth. The humans didn't just defend their space. They controlled the battlefield before it even began. Every encounter proved the same thing. The humans decided when and how a fight would end. Across the galaxy, the stories changed again. Now it wasn't just "Do not enter" marked on maps. It was a warning told in whispers. The humans don't fight wars. They end them before they start. For the first time, even the most arrogant Zarthian leaders began to understand what Vezrak had tried to tell them from the beginning. There were predators in the galaxy far worse than the Zarthians, and they were guarding a border no one dared to cross. Long before the deadline became the most feared border in the galaxy, humanity had been at war, not with another species, but with the void itself. When their first interstellar colonies were founded, humans had no allies, no maps, and no rescue fleets to call upon. They were alone in the cold darkness, surrounded by hazards the rest of the galaxy avoided entirely. Their earliest settlements were built on unstable worlds with violent weather, in asteroid belts constantly bombarded by debris, and in systems where solar flares could strip an unshielded ship bare in seconds. Every journey into the unknown carried the risk of never returning. Ships were torn apart by gravitational storms, supply convoys vanished in wormhole collapses, and entire colonies were swallowed by black holes no one had charted. But instead of retreating, humans adapted. They built warships that could survive direct asteroid impacts, freighters that could sail through magnetic storms without losing power, and habitats that could withstand centuries without resupply. By the time they made first contact with alien life, they had already fought and won battles that no other species had even attempted. And those battles hadn't been fought for conquest. They had been fought to survive. When the first alien pirates tried raiding human trade lanes, They found ships that didn't break under fire. Crews didn't panic when boarded. They fought back with brutal precision, treating every skirmish like it was just another day in the storms of the void. When rival empires sent fleets to test human defenses, they discovered that humans didn't waste ammunition or energy. Every shot was calculated, every move deliberate. They fought as if each battle might be their last, and they fought to make sure it wasn't. Over decades, humanity's military developed a philosophy that no other species understood. Prepare for the worst. Plan for what can't be planned. And never, ever underestimate the enemy. This mindset was why the deadline existed in the first place. It wasn't about keeping others out for the sake of territory. It was about making sure no threat, no matter how small, could reach human worlds. The galaxy only saw the surface of this truth. To outsiders, the deadline was just an intimidating border. To humans, it was the outer skin of a living, breathing defense network. Behind it lay thousands of automated listening posts, hidden inside asteroids, sensor arrays buried in dust clouds, and cloaked relay drones drifting between stars. Every approach to human space was mapped and monitored. Even the faintest drive signature from a ship months away would be detected and logged, and every detection would trigger a response plan already written and ready. This was why the Zarthians never stood a chance. The humans had known about their every move before they crossed the line. By the time the first scout ship appeared in Vezrak's encounter, human analysts had already predicted the Zarthians' next two incursions and prepared specific responses. The encounters weren't tests. For the humans, they were rehearsals. The warships that appeared at the deadline weren't the whole fleet. In fact, they were a fraction. The true strength of the Terran Defense Command was hidden far deeper, operating under strict orders. Never reveal more than necessary. Never fire unless needed, and always leave survivors to spread the warning. The dreadnoughts that had terrified Vezrak and crippled Dravak's fleets were not even the most advanced ships in human service. They were the old guard. Still lethal, but not the cutting edge. That cutting edge was reserved for only one scenario, a full-scale invasion. And humanity had built its fleets to make sure that, if that day ever came, the enemy would be erased, not defeated. It wasn't just technology that made them dangerous. It was the people, human crews trained in ways that alien militaries considered excessive. A human destroyer's crew might spend weeks in simulated total power loss drills, learning to operate and fight in complete darkness. A carrier's pilots might run thousands of combat simulations, adjusting for variables as small as temperature shifts in enemy engines. Every soldier was trained to operate every station on the ship, meaning no death or injury could cripple their effectiveness. The galaxy mistook this for paranoia, but the humans saw it as common sense. In the void, you didn't get second chances. This culture of preparation made every battle against them feel hopeless, because the humans never seemed surprised. An ambush wasn't an ambush, it was a trap the humans had already accounted for. A feint wasn't a distraction, it was an opening they were waiting for. And when the fighting began, they didn't fight like soldiers defending a border. They fought like the last survivors of the universe, determined not to be the last. Stories began to circulate, even within human ranks, about what lay deeper inside human space. Alien spies who somehow managed to survive the deadline whispered of enormous shipyards hidden inside hollowed-out moons, of weapons testing ranges built in empty star systems, and of fleets that trained in regions where the laws of physics bent unpredictably. Whether these stories were true or not didn't matter. The mystery only added to the fear. The truth was simpler and far more terrifying. The humans didn't need super weapons or endless fleets to hold the deadline. They only needed the will to fight every battle like it was for their survival, and the discipline to win it before it began. This was why, when the Zarthians crossed 3 times and lived, it wasn't mercy, it was strategy. Every survivor that returned to their homeworld carried the same message. Crossing the deadline is a mistake you only survive once, maybe twice if the humans allow it, but never a third time. And in the war rooms of the Terran Defense Command, That rule was absolute. If the Zarthians came again, the humans wouldn't send a dreadnought to warn them. They wouldn't disable ships and let them limp home. They would deploy the full might of the fleets built to survive the void itself. And the name Zarthian would be spoken only in the past tense. The distress signal came without warning. It was faint, scattered by the interference of a dense nebula. But the message was clear enough to reach the outermost human listening posts. A convoy of alien civilian ships was under attack by raiders. Their location just beyond the deadline for most species. Such a signal so close to enemy space would have been ignored. But humans didn't think like most species inside the Terran Defense Command. The call was routed directly to Fleet Admiral Rowan Hale. He studied the data in silence. His officers knew the rules. No alien ships were to cross into human space without permission. But this was different. The convoy wasn't invading. They were fleeing for their lives. The Admiral gave the order in a calm voice. Launch rescue protocol Delta Black within minutes. A formation of human dreadnoughts and frigates detached from their hidden positions along the deadline. Their engines ignited in perfect synchrony, vanishing into the void toward the nebula. To the untrained eye, they seemed to appear out of nowhere. One moment there was only empty space, the next, the sleek black warships slid past like sharks in deep water. The alien convoy had no idea help was coming. On their bridges, chaos reigned. The raiders, a mixed pack of pirates from multiple species, were picking them off one by one, targeting the slower freighters first. Explosions lit the nebula's swirling gases, casting strange shadows across the battered ships. Families huddled together in cargo bays, crews scrambled to patch hull breaches, and the last remaining armed escort struggled to hold the attackers back. Then the first human ship arrived. The pirates didn't even see it until it fired. A beam of pure blue light cut through the nebula, slicing the lead raider in half. The wreck drifted apart silently, its pieces glowing faintly in the strange light. The rest of the pirate fleet turned in shock, trying to locate the new threat. That was when the full human formation decloaked. 7 dreadnoughts, 15 cruisers, and dozens of smaller escorts surrounded the convoy. Their black armor drank in the dim light of the nebula, their blue engine trails weaving like ghostly threads through the mist. The human commander's voice came over an open channel. "This is Terran Defense Command," it said, calm but carrying a weight that silenced even the pirates' cum chatter. "You are ordered to disengage immediately or be destroyed." The pirates didn't listen. They never did. They opened fire, but their shots went wide. Humans didn't move their ships like traditional navies. Each vessel glided in precise arcs, dodging fire as if they already knew where the next shot would land. The human counterattack was surgical. They didn't blanket the battlefield with firepower. They picked their targets one by one. Every pirate ship that locked weapons on the convoy was crippled within seconds, engines fried, weapons disabled, shields collapsed. The humans didn't bother chasing those who tried to flee. They simply let them run, knowing they would spread the word of what they'd seen. For the alien convoy, the battle was over almost as soon as it began. But the rescue wasn't finished. Human repair drones swarmed from the cruisers, sealing hull breaches and stabilizing reactors. Med teams boarded the damaged ships, their armor black and unmarked except for the faint silver emblem of the Terran fleet. The rescued aliens were stunned not just by the human speed, but by their restraint. No civilians had been harmed, not a single freighter destroyed. The convoy's captain, a thin, scaled being named Ralik, asked the human commander why they had come. "You were in danger," the human replied simply, as if that explained everything. It did not go unnoticed that the convoy had been fleeing toward human space. To the rescued aliens, the humans were no longer just the terrifying wardens of the deadline. They were guardians, ones who would strike without hesitation to protect those in need. But the message was still clear in every word the humans spoke. "You are safe here, but only because you did not cross without permission." When the convoy limped away under human escort, the pirates were gone, all that remained in the nebula. were drifting wrecks and the faint hum of human engines fading into the distance. The story spread faster than any council propaganda could suppress. For years, the galaxy had whispered only of human warnings, of fleets turned back, of borders no one dared to cross. Now they whispered of something else, that the humans would fight like demons to protect what they chose to protect. It wasn't mercy, it wasn't kindness, it was principle, and that made it even more dangerous. Among the Zarthians, the tale caused deep unease. If the humans could wipe out a pirate fleet in minutes and still show the precision to leave every civilian unharmed, what could they do to a military force that did cross their border with hostile intent? Even the most arrogant counselors began to fall silent when that question was asked. For the humans, the rescue was just another operation. The fleet returned to its shadowed patrols along the deadline, invisible once more. But for the rest of the galaxy, it was a new warning, one just as chilling as the old. The humans didn't need to conquer to show their power. They didn't need to boast or threaten. They simply acted, decisively and without hesitation. And whether they were destroying an armada or saving a convoy, the lesson was the same. The humans control this border, and the galaxy survives by respecting it. Word of the Nebula rescue raced across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. Merchants told it in spaceports, soldiers whispered it in barracks, and even the shadow markets repeated it with a strange mix of awe and fear. The story always began the same way: pirates had cornered a convoy, and then the humans had arrived. Silent and unstoppable, but as the tale spread, it carried a deeper truth with it, one that every listener understood. The humans had chosen to act, and that choice was as dangerous as their ships. For years, the galaxy had only known the humans as the keepers of the deadline, a species that guarded its borders so fiercely no one dared to cross. Now there was another side to the legend. The humans could move beyond their border, not for conquest, but when they decided a fight was worth having, and when they decided, nothing in the void could stop them. The Zarthians tried to downplay it. Their propaganda channels claimed the rescue was staged, that the pirates were human mercenaries hired to make their own fleet look invincible. But the rescued aliens were not silent. They told anyone who would listen about the precision of the human attack, the speed of their arrival, and the way the human warships seemed to move with one mind. The more they spoke, the more the galaxy realized something chilling. The deadline was not a wall, it was a starting line on the Zarthian homeworld. The Council could feel the shift. For decades, they had told themselves that the humans stayed behind their border because they feared open war. Now it was becoming clear that the humans stayed behind it because they chose to. That choice could change, and if it did, there would be no safe place in the stars for their enemies. Fleet Admiral Rowan Hala, the man who had ordered the Nebula rescue, sat in the Terran Defense Command's main war room reviewing intelligence reports. His officers had intercepted communications from half a dozen alien governments, all recalculating their defense budgets and moving fleets away from human space. Fear was spreading faster than any human campaign could have achieved, and it was doing so without a single shot fired at a government fleet. The Admiral understood the power of that fear. It was the same power that had kept the deadline untouched for so long. Every story, every survivor, every silent standoff at the border was a reminder that the humans could end a war before it began. And yet, Hale also knew the other truth: fear alone was dangerous. It made some species cautious, but it made others desperate. A desperate enemy could still be deadly. That was why the humans never stopped watching, never stopped training, never stopped building. Beyond the deadline, in star systems no alien ship had ever charted, the human fleets drilled every day. They practiced boarding actions in zero gravity, long-range strikes across multiple star systems, and rapid redeployment drills that could shift an entire fleet across the border in minutes. Deep inside a hollowed-out moon in the Kepler expanse, shipyards worked without pause, building vessels that were never seen by outsiders. Some were massive dreadnoughts like the ones Vezrak had faced. Others were smaller, faster craft built for surgical strikes. Every ship was tested in conditions so extreme most alien crews would refuse to even simulate them. The humans were not preparing for the next Zarthian incursion. They were preparing for the day when the deadline might have to move. And when it moved, it would not be backward, on alien worlds far from human space. The political landscape was shifting. Trade unions began refusing to operate near the deadline without human clearance. Insurance companies charged triple premiums for any voyage that entered human border sectors. Mercenaries who once boasted of raiding Terran supply lines now spoke quietly of finding other work. Even the great powers of the galaxy, the ones who had never feared anyone, began quietly reinforcing their fleets on the opposite side of their territory, as if distance alone could protect them. But it wasn't just fear of human weapons. It was the unsettling realization that the humans had restraint. A reckless conqueror could be predicted, baited, and perhaps outmaneuvered. But a power that only acted when it wanted to, with total precision, could never be baited at all. The Zarthian Council, desperate to maintain some illusion of control, announced they would no longer attempt to cross the deadline, they claimed. It was a mutual respect agreement, though no human diplomat had signed anything. The truth was simpler. They had run out of chances. The humans had given 3 warnings, and every Zarthian alive understood what would happen if there was a 4th. Back on Earth, life went on as if nothing had changed. Cities thrived, trade flowed, and most citizens paid little attention to the fleets that patrolled the farthest reaches of human space. The people didn't need to see the warships to trust them. They knew that somewhere out there, beyond the edge of every map, the guardians of the deadline were watching. In the quiet of the Terran Defense Command's strategic chamber, Admiral Hale looked over the latest reports and allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The galaxy had learned why no species dared enter human space, and it had learned without the humans ever needing to fight a full war. That was the ideal outcome, strength without unnecessary bloodshed. But Hale also knew something the galaxy did not. Every victory, every rescue, every silent standoff at the border was a test. And the humans were passing those tests with ease. The day would come when someone, somewhere, would be foolish enough to push harder than the Zarthians had. When that happened, the humans would not simply defend the deadline, they would cross it. And when they did, the galaxy would see the full truth, that the reason no species dared enter human space was not because of the line itself, but because of the power waiting just beyond it. Until that day, the deadline remained silent. Not because there was no danger, but because the galaxy had finally learned that crossing it was not a challenge, it was a death sentence.